ITV News has learned that 1 in 10 MPs also work as local councillors, with many of them receiving double salaries. That is, despite the government pledging to ban second jobs. Now, the Conservative deputy leader of one council told us the situation is outrageous and that MPs should be forced to stand down as councillors. Our political correspondent Harry Horton looks at the row.
So, item 1 is apologies for absence, which we've got Michael Payne, MP. We've got Michelle Welsh, MP.
We have apologies from councillors.
They've been elected, but aren't always present.
Pertigella.
I have apologies from councillors.
Councillors, now also MPs, trying to juggle both jobs. Some say that's not possible. In Oxford, 2 MPs elected to Westminster in July still sit on the council. At last month's full county council meeting, one was present, but another absent, and not for the first time. Other councillors are not impressed.
They've been elected to do a job by their constituents, by representing them, whether it be here at the county council or the district council. If you're not showing up and you're not going to those meetings, you're not doing that job. Yes, you might be doing it in Parliament, but that's a complete different level. Here at local level, you need to be attending the meetings, like full council, like today. And if you're not doing that, you're not doing your job as a councillor. So my view is they need to step aside and let someone else do it.
Callum Miller MP did attend the meeting, but left halfway through to get back to his other job in Parliament.
I think it is possible to combine the roles. It requires a bit of hard work, a little bit of jetting around and rushing about. I've got my folding bike next to us as we do this interview, but I think you can do it. And the critical thing is you can do it in a way that really represents constituents well.
But with local councils strapped for cash and resource, some voters might wonder if they're being properly represented. 62 MPs are also still working as councillors. That's around 1 in 10. And while many have given up their councillor allowance, 48% of them are still paid. Now, of those who publish their attendance, over half have showed up to fewer than 50% of council meetings since they were elected as MPs in July. 20% of the councillor MPs have more than one council role, like Labour MPs Michael Payne, Michelle Welsh and Terry Jeremy. And others have their council and constituency in totally different areas, like Jim Dixon, who's an MP in Dartford in Kent, but also a councillor in South London. 1 in 10 MPs are also still elected councillors. How can MPs be fully committed to both Westminster and local government?
Well, I think it's an individual decision for those MPs. If they're in their, within an area or geographical area, then they, that's a decision for them on whether they could do both of those jobs. The
point is that lots of these MPs aren't turning up to council meetings. They're not fully committed to those roles. Shouldn't they stand down and allow somebody to be elected to the council who is more committed to that job?
Well, again, they will have to justify their ability to do both those jobs. And if they're elected as a councillor, then obviously attending meetings and representing their area is important, as is being an MP.
Tonight, Labour have told ITV News all their MPs have agreed to stand down from their local council, but at a later date. But it's not just Labour MPs. There are 6 Conservative MPs serving as councillors, and 40% of Liberal Democrat MPs also sit on local councils. Before the general election, Labour made this promise.
Ban all second jobs for MPs, with very limited exceptions.
There's nothing stopping MPs from being elected to multiple roles, but the sort of work they're allowed to do outside of Parliament is currently under review. And there are questions about whether it's possible to be fully committed to both Westminster and a local council. For now, MPs serving in multiple roles will have to make up their own mind about whether they can effectively represent all of their constituents.
Well, Harry's here, multiple roles, quite a few different points of view on this. Are voters being shortchanged, do you think?
Well, local government is under real financial pressure at the moment, and many might feel that if they elect someone to a local council, the bare minimum they would expect is that they would try and turn up to the vast majority of local council meetings. And our research has shown that not all cases, but in many cases, lots of the MPs doing these dual roles aren't doing that. Look, there is far less scrutiny of local councils than there used to be 20 or 30 years ago, and it's much harder for constituents to find out the sort of work that their local councillor is doing. We approached all the MPs that we mentioned in that piece there. They didn't get back to us about why they're carrying on as councillors and when they intend to stand down. The main political parties we've been speaking to over the past few weeks about this, and they didn't really have a clear position. Ultimately, all of them said it was down to individual MPs to make the decision about whether to carry on and when to stand down as a councillor. There was this promise made by Labour during the election that they would ban MPs from having second jobs. There is a review underway looking at what sort of second jobs might be banned. I understand that local councillors won't be included in that review. And look, I think it's worth saying there is nothing necessarily wrong with being both an MP and a local councillor. Indeed, there are lots of perfectly legitimate reasons you might not want to stand down as a councillor if you're an MP. One is that you might have lots of work underway that you want to see through to completion. Another is you might not want to trigger a by-election, which costs quite a lot of money at a time when councils are cash-strapped. But there is another reason MPs may not want to stand down, and that is fear of losing their seat to another party. Many of the councils we've been talking about here are quite finely balanced in terms of political control, and I think many councillors might fear that if they did stand down, then their party could end up losing control of a council, and that is something that nobody from any political party ever really wants to see happen.
OK. Harry Horton, thank you.